joining me today. I'm going to be doing a quick full bust adjustment in Affinity Designer 2. You're going to see how quick and easy it is to do, just like you do on paper. So I have an imaginary pattern. Well, not an imaginary pattern, but an imaginary person that I'm going to be doing this on. There is a written tutorial that goes through with how to do this as well, so make sure to check that out if you get stuck at any point. And the first thing you're going to do is take your pattern piece, and today I'm using the Duchess jacket by Ellie and Mac. And let's say you've measured yourself and you measure in one size, but you need a full bust adjustment. So the very first thing you're going to do is find your bust apex and transfer it into Affinity Designer. I'm going to make an imaginary one today, and I'm just going to say, okay, they're going to have a bust apex about there, but you would measure it in, and the written tutorial does give you ideas on how you can transfer this into Affinity Designer so that you have the accurate measurements. The next thing I like to do is to use guidelines. You can grab a guideline anytime by clicking on the rulers and dragging down, and this is a blue guideline. It's not going to print off. It doesn't show up at all. You can also grab one from the left, horizontal and vertical. I'm just going to make them crosshairs on my bust apex there. And before I go on any further, I want to make sure to duplicate this piece, and it's going to make more sense at the very end, but it's very useful. So Control J will duplicate the piece. Always double check that you have it duplicated. I move it and then just push Control Z. It moves it right back into place. I also want to create a fill color for this, so you can choose any color that you want. Since I have blue guidelines, let's go with the color, sorry, I don't want to do that. Control C, I want to change the fill color, so make sure you select the circle that is completely filled in, and then choose your color. That will work for today. Let's go ahead and leave it with that green. I don't have to be too picky about things. And then we're going to use the pen tool to kind of draw the lines in our dart here into our bust apex. Just click on the pen tool. You can use the shortcut letter P or click on it. Start at your bust apex, draw to the dart and to the center of the dart, and then press escape. That will end your line. You can draw the other lines where you are going to cut, but you shouldn't need to. It should select it on the other ways. So you can use the node tool or the move tool, and let's go ahead and select all the lines that we want. That's the line that I drew and the outline of our pattern piece. You need to make sure they're selected before you use the knife tool. Once those are selected, let's go ahead and grab the knife tool, and everything is still highlighted. I'm going to click and press Shift to draw a straight line straight through my bust apex. Make sure you've gone all the way through so it will cut it all the way through. And then in the tutorial that I'm using, it says to cut on your arm side about a third of the way down. So I'm going to eyeball about a third of the way down. Shift and Alt will allow you to draw a straight line in any way with that knife tool. And again, I want to come through the apex of the bust point. So that looks really good to me, and I'm going to go ahead and release. And now if I come over to the move tool, I should have two separate pieces. So let's see how we did here. Oh, it doesn't look like it did. So let's see what's happening. Okay, it worked just fine. I don't know why it wasn't selecting it before. If you're having a hard time with it, just select the node tool. That's what I did, and it worked out just fine. There was no issues with it. It cut correctly. What I'm going to show you is, see how it's selecting the kind of the right bottom part that I cut, and then if I click on the other side, it's selecting the other side of the shape. That's how you know you're ready to pivot. You're going to use the transform origin when you are in the move tool, and that's going to be that little blue crosshairs that is right in the center, and we're going to move that to where we're going to pivot on the arm side, and you can zoom in and try to get it right on the point that you want to pivot on. It will let you zoom in really far. for how accurate you want to get. Okay, and then we can rotate that piece, and I want to make sure it didn't have the bust dart connected to it. So I'm just going to push Control Z, and I want to make sure that this bust dart is also selected with the outside piece. I'm going to go ahead and group those together so that it will rotate them all together, because I do want those bust point pieces in there. So again, I'm going to move my transform origin back to where I want to pivot. And this time it should move the bust dart as well. Yay, it's moving the bust dart as well. Perfect. That is what we want. And let's pretend I need to add an inch. This person needs an extra inch in their bust. You can do that a few ways. You can turn on grids, and it doesn't show on the camera very well. And when I turn on the grids, you can't see them very well, but you can turn on grids. You can use the measure tool, but it disappears as soon as you click on another tool. So I don't like to use that when I need a measurement. Really, the quickest way is to just draw a rectangle and use the transform tool to type in how far you need it. I need it an inch. I can even change its color so that I'm not confused. And then I can move it over here down to my bust apex. I can zoom in and see, okay, I want this piece to be an inch away. So let's go ahead and zoom out and continue rotating it until we get exactly an inch that we want here. And let's see, why is it selecting? Let's see here. There. We'll use the node tool because the move tool was being weird. Now it's correct. It kept selecting the whole piece. So the node tool can be your friend there. Okay, so you can rotate it until you are about in there. You can also use the transform box. If it's snapping too much, you can turn off snapping and try to get it rotated as well as you can. That looks like it's going to give me the inch that I need, maybe a little bit extra. You get it as accurate as you need for your measurement. I'm going to call that good today. And then I can take out this box that we need, and let's go ahead and take that off. I'm just going to delete it because it's giving me a hard time here. And it's probably because I got these guidelines here. I don't actually need these guidelines right now anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and move those off to the side. Okay. And you may also notice, if you have extra lines on there, if they're going to bother you, you can delete them. Otherwise, these extra lines down here, I'm just going to not worry about it right now. We're going to need to use the knife tool again. And let me show you a cool trick. If you forgot to select your shape with the knife tool, you can push Control, and it will change to the node tool. And I'm just going to select that shape that I want to cut, and then release, and it's ready to use the knife tool again. Okay, so click, Shift and Alt will draw a straight line in any shape. I'm going to draw along the line that I made, I drew in pen before, when I was working before. I just want to make sure I draw it right through there. And then again, through the node on the side, Shift and Alt, all the way through the other node that I drew. So we can get a nice clean cut. And release. Okay, and let's see how we're doing. Good, I've got that whole piece selected. I'm ready to rotate again. So again, we enable that transform if you turned it off like I did. And let's put it back up to where, let's Control zoom in, get it right on the apex that we want to rotate on. And now I'm ready to rotate it back. And I want to close that gap, and it's going to be creating a large dart in there. I do have an extra piece up in here. It looks like the extra dart piece I can get rid of. I don't need that. And we have our bottom piece showing through under there, and that's okay as well. But you can see we're starting to create that big space, but our waist seam is not lined up. That's not what we want. I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece on the right side that we have here, Let's go ahead and get our node tool here. And I'm gonna draw it straight through. Oh, I did not use the right button there, and I drew a curved line. So I'm gonna just Control Z. I wasn't using Shift, and that I like Shift because it creates a nice straight line. Okay, now it's cut that bottom line. I can see it's its own piece now as I selected it with the nodes. I'm gonna use the Move tool. And when you are moving this time, hold the Shift down and it's going to move it straight down. It's not going to let you move it in any other direction. And I'm going to try to line up that waist seam right in line with it. And it is creating a slight curve, and that's just because of what we've added to it. And it looks like I still need to rotate this piece just a little bit more in here to get it to meet. So I'm just going to come back, and like I said, it takes a little trial and error. I want it to meet. I want it to be as accurate as possible because I want that waist seam to still line up with the bottom of the pattern, so it needs to be the same length. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have so far. It's looking pretty good. You can see in white the changes that we've made. If we select the pattern piece underneath it, we're going to go ahead and see it. We're going to use our nodes. Oh, and there we go. We got the entire original pattern piece. So you can see our new pattern piece is really quite a different shape on here. Let's go ahead and zoom in. And this is why we duplicate that original piece, is because now we can take that original piece and just line up the nodes with our new design here. And it looks like we're going to have to add a node right here in the middle so that I can bring it up to that curve. I still like to use those sharp square nodes. When you're doing the bust, make sure you come to the edge of where the bust dart leg would be, is where these nodes go. So at the bust dart leg, you want those to be the same length as before, so your side seam is the same. And you're going to take that middle line straight out, and I typically line it up with the angle of the other darts, and it seems to work out pretty well that way, but you can adjust the angle and how much you have up here. Then don't forget to bring up the arm side, and many times you'll have this line attached to the corner node, and that is how you're going to adjust the curve. So you can extend it out, and oh, that lined up really good, really good. We didn't even need a French curve on that. It's got its own mathematical French curve in there. But you can see now we have our new shape. We just need to draw in our new bust dart lines. And before I do that, I do like to go ahead and just get rid of the green parts that we filled in on here. I don't need that anymore. You can delete it on there. And the original pattern piece still has the old dart lines there. You're not going to use it at all. You're going to make your own darts. And for the pattern that I'm using, for the guideline that I used, they suggested a 2-inch space between the bust apex and the dart apex. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a 2-inch, again using the transform box, just as a measurement. And I want to make sure I get in that center, in the center of the bust point here for my measuring it. And then I'm going to get my pen tool and start right where the leg of the original dart would have started. Go to my new point, and then the leg at the bottom. We have our new dart there. Escape will finish that point. And then let's draw one from the center. So we have that center fold line as well. And escape. Let's zoom out and see what we have. You are finished, and I can clear up. I don't need the measurement box anymore, and you don't need your bust apex, and we don't need the old dart line. I just pushed Control Shift G because it was still grouped in there together, and that's why it was still there. And we can regroup it. We made quite the change on this piece. It was quite the extreme full bust adjustment in that one, but you can see how it works really easily in Affinity Designer 2 and those changes that we make. Our side seam, we didn't change it at all because it's all in that bust dart. It will be folded up, and we didn't change the waist seam at all. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. This is our full and complete version. You can see we have done a complete full bust adjustment all in Affinity Designer 2. The knife tool makes it really quick and simple to do it just the way you do it using paper. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for joining me today. Now, if you do have a question on exactly how to make the measurements for a full bust adjustment, I am not the person to ask. I am a member of the Tiny Titty Committee. If you have questions on exactly how to do a full bust adjustment, I'm going to direct you to some of the tutorials that I use to create this tutorial on there that gives some good tips on how to accurately measure yourself for the full bust adjustment and figure out the numbers that you will use and the distance between your apex and things like that. So if you have a question on how to do a full bust adjustment, I can't help you. But if you have questions on how to do an Affinity Designer 2 or any of the tools that I used on there, feel free to leave them below. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. Feel free to subscribe and leave me a comment. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day and happy sewing.